Wakanda has a pretty violent history, though that really shouldn't be that surprising when you consider that they're a monarchy whose leaders are chosen through ritual combat. Captain America and the nation of Wakanda have a long history, primarily featured in the comic Captain America and Black Panther: Flags of Our Fathers. The comic series goes all the way back to World War II, when Cap met Azzuri the Wise, who is the grandfather of the current Black Panther, T'Challa. They fight until they settle their differences to handle a bigger threat. Classic hero versus hero formula. Back in World War II, both the Americans and the Germans got word of an incredible material that could sway the war in favor of whoever obtained it. Say it with me, everyone. Vibranium. In Marvel Comics, it's always vibranium. Unless it's adamantium, of course. Naturally, both the United States and the Third Reich sent their best troops to obtain it from what they thought was an inconsequential African tribe. Infiltrate Wakanda, calmly walk past all of the tribes, and wave your boomstick around as needed. Seemingly easy enough. Boy, were they wrong. The United States sent their go-to super soldier, Captain America, along with Nick Fury's team, the Howling Commandos. Upon parachuting into the African nation of Wakanda, Captain America was met with the disturbing sight of heads impaled on stakes. These heads were from the German soldiers who arrived before the American forces. According to the German soldier the Wakandans let live, they said that the killings were a mercy, because they didn't know. But it would be much worse if any more were to show up. At that moment, the Black Panther at the time, Azzuri the Wise, arrives and effectively tells Cap that he'd be next if he doesn't leave. Azzuri already knows about Captain America, and both the Germans and Americans' goals to take the vibranium for themselves. When Cap gets a little too irritating for the Wakandan king, he gives him a good kick, and we get an awesome bout between two men in skin-tight suits. Azzuri wins in the end, but the relatively inexperienced Cap puts up a great fight and earns the respect of the Wakandans' Black Panther. The Howling Commandos are captured during the fight, but fortunately, they're treated to a dinner and a show. Bach, in fact. Seems a little better than what the Germans got from Wakanda. Getting killed by traps and having your heads placed on spikes seems a tad bit worse, but maybe that's just me. Fortunately, Cap and Azzuri are able to make nice, and they start working out how to cooperate against the inevitable German counterattack. Azzuri is shown immediately to have a lot of respect for Captain America, believing him to have the ability to be the symbol of pride for the Americans, just as Black Panther is for the Wakandan people. As the Germans attack, we get to see some great action of Cap and Panther fighting side by side for the first time against the advancing Axis forces. We also get to see a hint at the modern incarnation of Cap's round shield when Black Panther allows him to keep one of his that he promptly bounces off Red Skull's noggin. While Cap doesn't get his iconic shield from Wakanda itself, he says that the idea came to him from a friend of his in Africa. The series is filled with a mutual respect, or bromance, if you want to call it that, between Cap and the Black Panther of the time. Even though it's not the one Cap is most familiar with nowadays, this report of course lasted to the modern age, where Steve Rogers' Captain America fights alongside T'Challa Black Panther on the regular. It's bloody and brutal, but it's World War II. What did you expect? In Marvel, it's a common struggle for the Wakandan people to figure out the right balance of isolationism versus interventionism when it comes to conflict around the world. In Flags of Our Fathers, Cap can really make Azzuri reconsider his country's stance on the world stage by the end of the story. It's not hard to understand why Wakanda doesn't typically show interest in intervening in the matters of the rest of the world. They have a stranglehold on one of the rarest and most powerful resources in the world, and they'd rather keep that power for themselves as much as they can. Plus, with this metal, they are the most technologically advanced populace in the world, so they don't feel the need to deal with other countries. Heck, they even have a cure for cancer, but they decided not to release it to the rest of the world. It's a lot like how China was for a long time, but Wakanda didn't have to deal with the Mongols invading constantly, so they did alright. Another reason for Wakanda's hesitance to enter the world stage is their ongoing internal conflicts. As advanced as Wakanda is technologically, they have some catching up to do as far as government is concerned. Wakanda is not a united country, contrary to how they may seem. They are split into 18 tribes, in fact, each with their own views on how the country should be governed. While Wakanda is still a monarchy, they have transitioned to a constitutional monarchy in recent times, giving more power to the various tribes. Recently, Wakanda has opened up to the rest of the world much more, going so far as to join the United Nations and set up Wakandan embassies around the world. Naturally, this caused some animosity among the many citizens of Wakanda who believed that isolationism was the best path forward. The discomfort over the change in policy came to a head when the Dysturi were created in opposition to the Black Panther's rule. The Dysturi were fiercely xenophobic and loyal to the old ways of Wakanda. If it wasn't clear that they were the bad guys, they were funded by Dr. Doom. So yeah, red flags everywhere. With support from Dr. Doom, the Dysturi were able to overthrow the Wakandan government outright and take it for themselves. This comic leads directly into the Doom War miniseries, in which Dr. Doom unsurprisingly reveals that he used the Dysturi in order to access the country's vibranium for himself. Honestly, it's a good rule of thumb to just never work with somebody with the title Dr. Doom. It almost never works out well in the end. Wakanda is also host to a variety of religions, which cause some further instability within the country. The most obvious example is, of course, the Panther cult. This cult, which keeps Black Panther as its chief, defends the vibranium meteor from anyone who would try to access it. They are also the inheritors of the heart-shaped herb, which is a vibranium-infused plant that bestows the power of the Black Panther upon those who consume it. Hopefully it tastes good, because that's probably the most nutritious thing you can eat on the planet. The main religious sect that opposes the Black Panther cult is the White Gorilla cult. They oppose the Panther cult and have a similar idol in the form of the White Gorilla. During Flags of Our Fathers, the White Gorilla cult even went as far as to help Red Skull in attacking the Wakanda government. The White Gorilla gains his powers in a much less elegant way than the Black Panther does. Hunting and eating the flesh of a White Gorilla is not nearly as ceremonial as consuming the heart-shaped herb. Finally, we get to what is quite possibly the most violent aspect of Wakandan culture. Wakanda decides its ruler purely through ritual combat. Anyone could challenge the Black Panther's claim to the throne at any time. As crazy as that sounds, it just might work. Debates would certainly be much more exciting. As technologically advanced as Wakanda is, it still holds true many of its cultural values, the combat trial for king being one of the most prevalent. Fortunately, to make it a fair fight for the challenger, whoever currently claims the title of Black Panther must consume an antidote that nullifies the heart-shaped herb. In the MCU, we see T'Challa challenged by M'Baku, leader of the Jabari tribe, who is interested in a more conservative and traditional Wakanda, much like the Dysturi in the comics. T'Challa is able to win against M'Baku, but is later challenged by Killmonger, who defeats him and takes the throne and title of the Black Panther for himself. It's truly bizarre that the most advanced country in the world would still decide who controls their country in this manner. In the film, Killmonger changes the entire nature of the country, smuggling weapons around the world, destroying the heart-shaped herbs, and killing anyone who gets in his way with impunity. The fact that Wakanda decides who leads their country based on who can kill is downright insane. Without any kind of safeguards, it makes the country dangerously unstable, especially since they are one of the most powerful countries on the planet. Look, I know politics can get pretty bad, but at least we aren't throwing each other off waterfalls in the end. T'Challa is able to defeat Killmonger and bring Wakanda into a more open and cooperative future with the rest of the world. Captain America and Black Panther have a great dynamic with one another, centered around mutual respect and their symbology for their people. Cap may have lost the fight against Azzuri, but they became bros in the end, and I think that's what really matters.